freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo as long as we are led by politicians who will not put America first. Then we can be assured that other nations will not treat America with respect, the respect that we deserve.
And GOP Josh is a young conservative influencer with a lot of power.
You're listening to the voice of the future, fighting for America every day. This is the Conservative Crusader. And here's your host, GOP Josh.
The justice system in New York State and America as a whole is under attack, or under assault by partisan, deluded, biased judges and prosecutors. Racist, corrupt AG Tish James has been obsessed with getting Trump for years and used crooked New York State Judge Engoron to get an illegal, un-American judgment against me, my family, and my tremendous business. I helped New York City during its worst of times, and now while it is overrun with violent Biden migrant crime, the radicals are doing all they can to kick me out. This decision is a complete and total sham. There were no victims, no damages, no complaints, only satisfied banks and insurance companies, which made a ton of money, great financial statements that didn't even include the most valuable asset, the Trump brand, ironclad disclaimers, buyer beware and do your own diligence, and amazing properties all over the world. All the other side had was a ridiculous $18 million evaluation of a magnificent Mar-a-Lago, an unconstitutional gag order, a consumer fraud statute never before used for this purpose, no jury allowed, and a refusal to send this disgusting charade to the commercial division, where it would have been put to a deserving end. The case is over ever since the Appellate division ended it on the state statute of limitations, also letting my daughter Ivanka out of this witch hunt. The Democrat club-controlled Judge Engoron had already been reversed 4 times on this case, a shameful record, and he will be reversed again. We cannot let injustice stand, and we will fight crooked Joe Biden's weaponized persecution at every step. Make America great again. Well, welcome in, everyone. This is the Conservative Crusader, GOPJosh.com. Glad to be with you all today, as always. Joining us in about 7 minutes, MELENA SIEBERT, running for the 12th District Court of Appeals here in Ohio. That was a statement issued by the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, in regards to the decision landed down in the New York fraud case, where he will be barred from operating business, ordered to pay over $350 million, $350 million with an M, million, in New York civil fraud case. He was barred from operating his business for 3 years and found liable for more than $350 million in damages in the civil fraud case brought against him and his family and the Trump Organization by New York Attorney General Letitia James. The New York judge, Arthur Engoron, who smiles for the cameras, by the way. Don't forget about that. How stupid he is. He's making a reality TV show out of this. Handed down his ruling Friday after a months-long trial beginning in October and stemming from James' lawsuit again alleging the former president inflated his assets and committed fraud. Engoron ruled that Trump and his defendants were liable for persistent and repeated fraud, falsifying business records, issuing false financial statements, conspiracy to falsify false financial statements, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. The judge also barred Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump from serving as an officer in any director of any New York corporation or a legal entity in New York for 2 years. So what this means, pretty much, is that the legacy that is the Trump name in New York has been completely and totally destroyed by a woke DA, by a woke or attorney general. Thinking of Fat Fannie Willis, where the attorney general in this case, Tish James, hired a liberal Democrat judge, handpicked for this case, to try to lock up President Trump. Handpicked. And he ended up barring him or charging him $350 million in damages. $350 million. Now, they say Mar-a-Lago is worth $18 million. Now, I have not been to Mar-a-Lago. I've been to Bedminster, and I can tell you that's well worth $18 million and then some. But Sean Parker is the Delaware County Republican Party chairman. He hosts the Live at the Lazy events every Monday that I try to attend as often as I can. And he said that the swimming pool alone overlooking the ocean is worth $18 million on a bad day in Biden's economy. So the whole property, which is probably worth $150, $200 million, is being completely devaluated. Trump has paid his bills. He has paid back the loans on time. Nothing he did was outside of the ordinary in any way, shape, or form to New York business. No way has anything he's done been out of the ordinary, out of the blue, different from what any other New York businessman does or any businessman across the world. Inflating assets, trying to get out of paying taxes, trying to get loans so he can build your business. That's how things work. That's how things move. Engoron, in his 92-page ruling, criticized Trump in his testimony during trial, saying that he rarely responded to the questions asked, and he frequently interjected long, irrelevant speeches on issues far beyond the scope of the trial. His refusal to answer the questions directly, or in some cases at all, severely compromised his credibility, Engoron wrote. Imagine saying the president compromised his credibility. What a coward. Trump attorney Christopher Kise slammed the decision, saying the court ignored the law, ignored the facts, and simply signed off on the attorney general's manifestly unjust political crusade against the front-running candidate for president of the United States. Legal cases are supposed to be decided based on the application of established legal principles to the actual evidence. During 44 days of trial, not one witness, not one complaint, not one victim supported attorney general manufactured claims of fraud. Moreover, the evidence established President Trump's net worth far exceeded what was reported in his financial statements. Even the bankers actually involved in the loans testified there was nothing misleading, there was no fraud, and that the transactions were all highly profitable. So we have this country and this organization and whatever this is. They are taking away the will and the voice of the actual people who are affected by this. The bankers, the insurance agents, all this affected by what President Trump says. They're taking that out of the way. And they're just completely, totally putting it in the hands of Judge Engoron, who, hate to look at him, looks like he's never seen the inside of a nice house on a bad day. So Don Jr. put out a statement as well, saying, "We've reached a point where your political beliefs combined with what venue your case is heard are the primary determinants of the outcome, not the facts of the case. It's truly sad what's happened to our country, and I hope others see it before it's too late to correct course." I hope Trump just moves everything to Mar-a-Lago, sells Trump Tower. I mean, without Trump's name on it, Trump Tower is 20 times worse, right? And I believe it's a beautiful building, it's a beautiful place. But without Trump in big gold letters across the front of it, it's not going to be the same thing. It's not going to be nearly as popular, not going to have nearly as much tourism. They're obviously not going to have the Trump stores in them, which I believe is probably where most of the money comes from now, or they have the Trump merchandise stores in there, which it's on my bucket list to go in and actually purchase from, but I doubt I'll ever go to Times Square. So yeah, that's where we are in this country, where the venue where your case is heard is a larger determinant in the case as a whole than, well, actually having a valid case and actually following the law. I could follow the law perfectly, but if, Maureen O'Connor from here in Ohio has to hear my case, I'm screwed. President Trump can follow the law perfectly, but if it's a Democrat judge, he's screwed. And that's why judicial appointments are so important. And especially when people that are on the Republican side or claim to be Republican are talking about not voting for Trump in 2024. You really want Biden to have more judicial appointments? You want this to happen even more? Well, it's against President Trump, so they probably do. Speaking of judges, right after the break, we're going to have MELENA SIEBERT on. She is running for the 12th District Court of Appeals here in the state of Ohio, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be a great interview, actually. Pre-recorded, not going to spoil that. Really hard to set up logistics with people that are really busy covering 8 counties in her campaign. So we're going to talk to her here in just a minute, but after that, even more of the news, more of the commentary. You're listening to the youngest hour of talk radio in the nation, GOPJosh.com, right back after this.
You're listening to the Conservative Crusader. This is the Conservative Crusader.
Welcome back. This is the Conservative Crusader. Joining us now is a lawyer, a constitutional law expert, and a candidate for the Ohio's 12th District Court of Appeals. I have the list in front of me, which covers Brown, Butler, Claremont, Clinton, Fayette, Madison, Preble, and Warren counties. MELENA SIEBERT is joining us now. SIEBERT4the12.com, SIEBERT, the 12th, number 12, th.com. MELENA SIEBERT, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Josh. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you for coming on. Before we get to who you are and actually why you're running for this seat, I went over the list of counties. It's a big area. What is the 12th District Court of Appeals, and why are you, or not why you're running, but what is it?
That's a great basic question, because I think a lot of people really don't have a fundamental understanding of how the court system in Ohio is set up. And so it's a great opportunity to let your listeners know that. So the Ohio is divided actually into 12 appellate districts. Okay, so this is the 12th district. You listed the counties. And what happens is any case in any trial court in any of those 8 counties that gets appealed goes up to the 12th district. So it could be a criminal case, it could be a civil case, it could be a juvenile case of some sort, it could be a domestic relations case, it could be any case that would be, heard at the trial level in any of those counties. And each county is set up differently. Some counties have specific juvenile courts, some don't. So that's why I'm saying, it's kind of a variety there. So any case that's heard at the trial level, the person who loses that case has the right to appeal. And when they appeal, they go up, in those counties, they would go up to the 12th District Court of Appeals. And the 12th District Court of Appeals then decides the case. But important for your listeners to understand, an appellate court really doesn't relitigate a case. They're not having another jury trial. They're not doing things like that. The questions in front of the appellate judges primarily is, did the trial court judge decide questions of law in the underlying case correctly? In other words, was evidence did they keep evidence out that they should have let in, or vice versa? Did they exclude? Did they include evidence that they should have excluded because of the illegal search and seizure or something like that? Did they, misinterpret a statute? Did that judge do something like that would be contrary to Ohio law? And that's really what an appellate judge looks at. An appellate judge really isn't going to look at a case and say, well, the jury got it right or wrong on the facts. They're not going to have another jury trial. They're really looking at questions of law.
MELENA SIEBERT is joining us. Thank you for that explanation, because I kind of knew, but I mean, you went deeper than I even knew, so I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, of course.
Now that we have the basics out of the way, introduce yourself. Who are you? Why are you running? And what's your background?
Well, I live in Butler County. I've lived here for 30 years. I am married to my husband, Scott, coming up on our 32nd anniversary. I have 2 grown children. Timothy, who is working full-time. He went into welding after high school, and my daughter is finishing up an accounting degree this year at Ohio State University. that is my some of my background as far as family and so forth is concerned. I am a double Bearcat for any University of Cincinnati fans out there. I went to undergraduate at UC, got a marketing degree, and went into sales for about 8 years after undergrad. And then when we had children, I actually decided to stay home with them for 15 years. Loved doing that. But then they started growing up. And so at the age of 46, I decided to fulfill a lifelong dream. And that's when I started law school. So I come to the law in a slightly different path than a lot of people traditionally do. But I think it's given me a great perspective on law and a great maturity in how I analyze law.
Well, that's a great background, and I'm glad you're running. And so why is it that you want to serve in this role, and what makes you uniquely qualified to serve? Because you do have an opponent in this race. She's also, I believe you're running as a Republican. I don't know the actual logistics behind that, but you're both seeking Republican endorsements. I know that much. So what makes you uniquely qualified?
Well, first of all, the reason why I'm running for this role is right now I do civil litigation, concentrate on constitutional and election law. The firm that I'm with concentrates on a lot of First Amendment, right to life litigation, election integrity litigation. And so I have a broad background at both trial and appellate level in litigation. And I love advocating for my clients. But a couple of years ago, some friends of mine that I've been involved with through the Federalist Society actually started talking to me about thinking about running for the seat, because this is an open seat. A judge that currently sits in the seat who served the district very well, Steve Powell, is retiring next year, and that's why this is an open seat. So people started approaching me because they, respected my intellect, thought I could do a good job on the appellate bench, and started talking to me about it. And I really had to think about it, because I do love advocating for my clients. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, what the bench really needs, and what we need to consistently keep on the bench, especially at the appellate level, is we need good advocates for the law itself. While I love advocating for my clients, at the core, what I'm advocating for always is the Constitution. I'm always advocating for the proper interpretation of the Constitution and for the underlying statutes that are involved in litigation. And that's really what I think a good appellate judge does, is looks at the text of the underlying statute or Constitution at issue and does a good job of interpreting those from an originalist and a textualist perspective.
MELENA SIEBERT. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and so that is why I'm excited about running for this appellate role, and think that I would be uniquely qualified because I have done a great deal of appellate work. And virtually every case I litigate requires a lot of complex analysis, which is reading and writing law is essentially what you do on the appellate bench. And that's what I do now.
Well, that sounds like you are qualified then. MELENA SIEBERT, SIEBERT4the12th.com. If you are elected to this position, which is going to be a close race from everything I can tell, what is your top priority in serving the people of these 8 counties on the 12th District Court of Appeals?
My top priority is to continue providing excellent originalist and textualist interpretation of statutes and constitutions that we have here in Ohio. Our appellate bench on the 12th District right now is strong. I believe our Ohio Supreme Court appellate bench is strong, but I think we need people with strong judicial philosophy that know exactly how to interpret law in order to keep our bench strong. I think we've seen in recent years that some very consequential cases can be determined one way or the other, and it really a lot of times flips on how strong the judicial philosophy is on the bench. And I believe I have the strongest judicial philosophy, the strongest, most conservative judicial philosophy of anyone running for this race. And I look forward to serving the people of the 12th District in that capacity.
Well, very interesting. I appreciate all that. MELENA SIEBERT, I have another question for you now outside of this race. I actually found out about this listening to you on the Bruce Hooley show. I'm a big fan of Bruce in Columbus, and I'm right around Columbus, so in the district. You co-authored an amicus brief to the Supreme Court in support of President Trump. This is kind of old news now, but I'm very interested in hearing more about this. So what is detailed in this brief, and what's the purpose overall, and which case was it for? He has like 20 going on now, unfortunately.
Yeah. I know, it's hard to keep track, unfortunately. This was the Colorado ballot access case. So if you recall, the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that that Trump could be thrown off of the primary ballot because they determined that he, quote unquote, incited an insurrection on January 6th. And so because of that, there is a portion of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution which does prevent quote unquote insurrectionists from holding office. And I'm not going to get, there are about 1,000 different legal weeds we could get into here. But let me just concentrate on what our amicus brief said to the Supreme Court, because there were, like I said, a lot of different paths taken in this particular case. But our point to the Supreme Court was basically on a First Amendment defense, in that, first of all, the words in the 14th Amendment in the disqualification clause that is at issue here does not include the historical references to this, would not include incitement, because incitement is a very, very tricky element of law that you want to make sure you're not sweeping a bunch of constitutionally protected speech into in terms of trying to accuse somebody of incitement. That was our first prong. The second prong is that under very, very well established court precedent, Supreme Court precedent, what the speech that President Trump gave on January 6th could not in any way be considered an incitement to an insurrection, even if incitement to an insurrection could disqualify somebody from holding office. So that was our position, and I think it's going to get a lot of weight held to it in the Supreme Court. Our firm actually has, the firm's owner has argued 13 cases in front of the Supreme Court, has won 9 of those. So, sometimes you're given a little bit more weight when you come from a position like that.
Very known and respected by the court, you're saying.
Correct. And I don't know if any of your listeners listened to the oral arguments on this case, but I did. And I was actually very pleasantly surprised. I actually think there's a solid chance that this is going to be a 9-0 decision in favor of Trump staying on the ballot. I know we all have our opinions about the Supreme Court justices and their different politics that are involved. And sometimes that does rear its ugly head, but I think I could tell by the questioning, reading the tea leaves on the Supreme Court is not always easy, but I think this one was pretty evident from the oral arguments that the court was pretty skeptical of Colorado's position.
I didn't listen to all of it. All I know is that the new justice, what's her name? I can't remember. Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Ketanji Brown
Yeah,
Jackson.
I remember she spoke a lot, and she didn't seem like she was on board. But the rest of them, and I was pleasantly surprised by the rest of the people.
Yeah. This court is an interesting makeup. There have been actually several opinions on various topics, not just related to President Trump, but on various topics where you have different crossings of different justices that you wouldn't necessarily think would always be aligned with one another that are in some of these cases in the past couple of years. So it's been kind of interesting as somebody who practices and has practiced in front of the Supreme Court and written several briefs to the Supreme Court. You're always kind of thinking about who you're writing to, who the swing votes are going to be on any particular issue. And sometimes that is easy to figure out, and sometimes it's not. In recent years, it necessarily hasn't been always as straightforward as it has been in the past to figure that out.
MELENA SIEBERT is joining us now, candidate for 12th District of Court of Appeals. I've already mentioned your website, but where can people find you online, help support your campaign, learn more about you, ask you questions, all that fun stuff?
Sure. Well, you mentioned my website, SIEBERT for the 12th, SIEBERTFORTHE12th.com. You can also find me at that address on Facebook. Twitter is a bit different just because the handle, the 4, is just the number 4, so SIEBERT for the 12th there. You can find me on all the socials, and I'd be happy. My contact information is available on my website and so forth. I'd be happy to speak to anybody and answer any questions that anyone might have. But I am looking forward to serving the people of the 12th District in this capacity.
And that is Brown, Butler, Claremont, Clinton, Fayette, Madison, Preble, and Warren, which sounds like a weird conglomerate, but
It is. It's well, they each district has approximately the same number of people in it, so that's why you get sometimes some interesting different conglomerations of counties
That
together.
would make
So,
sense, and I hope it's easy to campaign. I imagine it can't be as easy as it sounds, but
yeah, it takes some time, but I'm enjoying it. So.
Well, that's great to hear. MELENA SIEBERT, thank you for joining us on the Conservative Crusader. Hope you have a great rest of your night.
Thank you. You too.
We'll be right back after this. You are listening to the Conservative Crusader.
You're listening to the Conservative Crusader. This is the Conservative Crusader.
Well, welcome back. This is the Conservative Crusader. Hope you enjoyed that interview with MELENA SIEBERT, running for the 12th District Court of Appeals here in Ohio, covering that very large portion of the state. All right, some more Ohio news, because this is an Ohio-centric program. Also, it's national news. Biden, the current president, believe it or not, fraudulently or not, is finally, after however many days, 371, I believe I saw, days, visiting East Palestine, Ohio. President Biden is visiting East Palestine, Ohio today, just over a year after a freight train carrying hazardous materials derailed in the small village near the Pennsylvania state line. Mr. Biden is set to receive a briefing from local officials on the recovery efforts and continued response to the aftermath of the derailment and hazardous chemical fire involving a 9,300-foot train with about 150 cars in February of 2023, last year. The derailment sparked serious health and environmental concerns for residents who have expressed frustration over the federal government's response to the crisis. Now, I can't obviously play you video on the majority of you listening to this show on radio or podcast. It was not a warm reception, to say the least. As if you just look up on Twitter, Trump supporters, East Palestine, and I'll play audio if there's any audio. They lined the road. I mean, completely and totally. Do we have audio? Oh, there we do. We do.
Let's go, Brandon! Let's go, Brandon! Let's go, Brandon! Let's go, Brandon!
And they just have people all over the Maine. This is tiny, tiny little community. People all over the main drag just shouting, "Let's go, Brandon! Let's go, Brandon!" Really impressive stuff, really. Now, if all those people get 10 people out to vote, we'll have an even better November. But really impressive showing for this, because the president's going to be in town. You're looking kind of controversial here. And the mayor, who in 2021 had his Facebook profile picture as "Don't blame me, I voted for the guy with the mean tweets," had to introduce, or I believe he probably introduced, Biden today. It's actually happening as we're live with this program. We could cut away to listen to the mumble jumble, but we're not going to. Too little, too late. And it truly is. We have Biden coming a long time after Trump had already been there. It's not like this is somewhere Trump hasn't already been, right? Trump came 19 days after the train derailment. We're now over 370 days past the train derailment. Biden's finally showing up. But it's such a slap in the face to the people. The people that actually have to live in this community, right? A lot of them it's not a rich area. They can't just pack up and move. No, they have to live with whatever's left from that train derailment. They have to live with contaminated tap water. They have to live with the fumes in the air and wondering if their kid's going to drink the wrong tap at school and come home with cancer. And this is true, real concerns people have. And they're justifiable concerns. But we have, in this vicinity, a president that simply doesn't care, an administration that simply doesn't care, and an entire process that wants to see the little guy hurt, it seems. The average person in East Palestine that can't afford to move, that can't afford a water purification system, and we don't even know if water purification will take care of whatever contaminated the water. But those of us in Ohio that are worried about water lines and waterways connecting where we get water from, if you have a well in your yard or something like that, it could very well flow down south to the rest of the state. And so here's where we actually raise the question. Why are we allowing full media coverage, hey, look, I'm doing something by Biden because he finally showed up? And I hope the mayor, and I obviously can't watch this to say it, tells Biden on the podium, too little, too late. Because this isn't a modern news story. Biden wants to be able to post on his campaign Twitter account that said they scripted out everything that happened with the Super Bowl, including the shooting, I guess, and say, hey, look, results are delivered for the people. This mayor is somehow still living after a year. Biden did his job. And that's the narrative. And we don't have a way to counter that narrative on the Republican side, at least. And so that's what it's going to be in the media. It's just going to be Biden visits East Palestine, progress ahead, or we have progress, or something like that. But it's simply not the case. And I don't know where that place. I've never been to East Palestine. I wanted to go after the train derailment. I'm also a minor and I'm not a government official. Can't just pack up and go 4 hours up north to look at a train derailment in a really small community that I have no connections in. Trump came there 19 days after, and I think that's really almost too late to be 19 days, but he also wasn't serving as president. Biden was serving as president, is still serving as president, even if he wasn't elected. And he showed up 370 some days later after vacationing for 400 and some days of his presidency. If you don't feel like you are a lower class citizen than the people of Delaware who get to see their president every weekend, or the people of Washington, D.C., where he stays most of the time, why don't we have a president that actually goes around the country and serves the country? I honestly think we would be better as a country if we didn't have a White House and just you had to actually travel and meet people and talk to actual regular people. And Trent Conway, the mayor of East Palestine, is probably one of the most regular people you'll ever meet, knowing he literally isn't a politician. He is serving as a mayor, East Palestine population of 4,000 people, right? And there was a decrease in people. It's been steadily decreasing. So he's not a politician. He probably doesn't have major, giant aspirations in politics. I don't imagine so, at least. But I mean, he serves his community. And he's being made as almost like a prop by Biden. And it's a shame. It really is. Especially when he posts, "Don't blame me, I voted for the mean tweeter." I mean, just what a guy. And so, I don't know. We'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens in East Palestine. I don't think that Trump will actually, or Biden will actually succeed in anything. Pete Buttigieg put the blame on congressional inaction, saying that it's still taking time to get through. Buttigieg said that it's still waiting its turn in Congress. It is frustrating that the Railway Safety Act has yet to receive a vote. Buttigieg pointed to unnamed members of Congress who had a lot to say, in the immediate aftermath of February 2023, but are nowhere to be found on supporting the bill. Sherrod Brown and J.D. Vance co-sponsored the legislation in the weeks after the East Palestine crash, which spilled cars containing toxic chemicals, including vinyl chloride. The bill would increase safeguards for trains carrying toxic materials and require two-person crews on cars. Buttigieg made the remarks the same day Biden will visit the community at the invitation of Mayor Trent Conway, Republican. Although Buttigieg and environmental EPA Administrator Michael Reagan visited the town in the immediate aftermath, Biden did not. Now, here's my take. Put Biden on a stage, not even on a stage, in a little restaurant, a little Chinese shop, a little Mexican, whatever they have in that town. I don't know what they have in that town. Put a tap of water, any random tap, even the bathroom tap. Pour him a cup. Fill him up a cup, take him under the tap, fill up a cup, and watch Biden drink it. Fresh, straight out of the tap. He won't do it. The only congressman we saw do it was Troy Nehls, who's a great congressman, but he walked outside, did not have video of the tap going on, and he just drank a cup of water. We don't know where that came from. But why doesn't Biden go and take a drink of the water, the tap water, fresh out of the tap, no cuts, right in front of the camera, and see how safe it really is? And if he won't, then why should we? Why should the people that live in that community drink the water daily if the president won't do one glass? Food for thought. When we return, Trump's Truth Social might be hitting Wall Street. And we have news about ODOT and traffic, because I love talking about traffic here in the state of Ohio. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to The Voice of the Future, the youngest hour of talk radio in the nation, brought to you by our friends over at Fiverr, the world's largest marketplace that offers both buyers and sellers a digitally streamlined transactional platform. That's over there at fiverr.gopjosh.com, fiverr.gopjosh.com. Right back after this.
You're listening to the Conservative Crusader.
Welcome back. This is the Conservative Crusader, GOPJosh.com. Speaking of the state of Michigan, they have two chairmen of their party. We had Christina Caramo on the show, one of which is recognized by the RNC, one of which is not. They have two websites. They have migop.org and Michigan Republican Party.org, I believe. Two dueling websites, two dueling chairmen, one recognized by the RNC, one that's not. It's MichiganRepublicanParty.com. Apologies. Two different primaries, not primaries, but two different conventions. I don't know what's going to happen or how this is going to get resolved. Christina Caramo is still setting her sights high on being the chair. And I guess we're going to see where that happens to go. There's March 2nd at the Huntington Place in Detroit, Michigan. There's a convention. And then that's a dinner. Never mind. It's not the convention. We don't have the date of the second convention yet, apparently. Just such a weird situation overall. And I guess we'll see where that goes. But that's quite interesting, quite entertaining. Whatever's going to happen in Michigan. But let's move on here. Donald Trump's Truth Social gets closer to Wall Street after the SEC approves the merger. I did not know the whatever it is, the SEC football had to approve the Southeastern Conference had to approve Wall Street mergers, but Digital World Acquisition Corp announced the approval of the merger between Digital World and Trump Media and Technology Group, which is the owner of Truth Social. I'm a proud shareholder in TWAC. This achievement marks a significant milestone for us. Our sincere thanks goes to our shareholders for their unwavering support. We are excited to soon share the world of the news of the business combinations approval process with them. A date for shareholder vote will be announced. There is also the issue of Truth Social running out of money, the SEC filings say. CEO Devin Nunes says Truth Social was created to serve as a safe harbor for free expression to give people their voices back. I'm a big fan. I don't post on Truth Social, but I scroll through it sometimes. The only thing that gets me are the ads. The Truth Social ads are just kind of funky sometimes. But so, President Trump cannot do business in New York, but it's going to be on Wall Street. I love this timeline. I don't love the fact that Trump's not going to be able to have businesses officially in New York, and this is going to be appealed. This is all like, if the fight ended now, this is where we'd be, but he's going to be appealed a million times and probably not going to have any effect before the election. But he's not going to be able to run businesses in New York, but he's going to be on Wall Street. I love to see that. Mallory Wilson wrote that for the Washington Times. So it was plagued since 2021. 3 investors were charged in June for insider trading that allegedly profited them more than $22 million. The SEC said Digital World violated anti-fraud laws in July by not disclosing to investors that it was actively looking at merging with Mr. Trump's company. So, I remember, I don't know how these things work. I'm not a stock expert. I should ask one of my friends that's a financial advisor about that. I'm not a stock expert or financial expert, anything like that. But I do know that from the moment I knew about DWAC, they were merging with President Trump. So, not sure where that goes from there, but, we'll see where it goes. And I feel like it's going to happen. It's going to be huge. But anyway. All right. We have about 5 minutes left on the show. I want to talk about ODOT, but I want to talk first about the Teenage Republicans of Ohio, who I am proud to be a chairman of. I'm also the emperor of conservative Twitter, whatever that means. But more proudly, I am the chair of the Teenage Republicans of Ohio, the largest group activating first-time voters in the state from ages 12 to 20. We are larger than the fake high school Republicans. We are the Teenage Republicans, and we are a larger organization. And we issued several endorsements from around the state in the upcoming primary elections, most of which we have firsthand knowledge of the candidates, some of which we are following from afar, but the values they put forward align with the mission we have for 2024, for our future, and that's really where we are with our endorsements. I personally cannot say I supported every single endorsement on the slate. We have a large group, a large meeting. But this is who the majority of the Teenage Republicans, our large executive board, decided. And these are who are going to be our endorsees in the upcoming elections. So let's go through these together. For president, obviously, DJT, President Donald J. Trump. U.S. Senate, Bernie Moreno. That was a prior endorsement, but it's put on the slate. For U.S. Congress, we have 4 congressional endorsements, none of which are incumbents in here. These are all open seats that are either held by a Democrat or the Republicans not running again. In Ohio's 2nd District, we endorsed Kim Georgeton. Derek Myers is one of the leading candidates. He is an absolute crazy whack job, and Kim Georgeton is being attacked by him day in and day out. We are proud to endorse Kim Georgeton. Reggie Stofelix is running in OH6. I'm not super familiar with him, but he did have a massive, pretty much unanimous backing by the Teenage Republicans, and we're proud to support him. J.R. Majewski, friend of mine, I personally nominated him for this endorsement. I'm glad to see he received it. He is a great patriot, a good friend. We all know J.R. Majewski. And then Kevin Coughlin, Ohio's 13th, the presumptive GOP nominee, a strong businessman with a background, and we are excited to support him as well and hopefully see him beat Amelia Stykes in November. In the Ohio State House, in the 12th District, friend of the program, friend of mine, Brian Stewart, received the coveted Teenage Republicans endorsement. Jennifer Gross in District 45 goes without saying. She's one of our strongest fighters in Columbus. We are proud to endorse her. Anthony Savage in the 54th District, a young Republican running for the seat that is actively engaged in fighting for the values of this next generation. We are proud to support him as well. Beth Lear, the 61st District, I believe she's probably the most underrated member of the Ohio House. We're proud to back her as well. In the 69th District, non-incumbent Daniel Kalmbach is running against a Blue 22 member. We are proud to back him. In the 73rd District, we endorsed Austin Beigel, who's no longer running. He is now, I believe it's Mike Tucci is running in that seat. We're going to evaluate him and possibly endorse him at a later date. In the 94th District, Ron Ferguson, a great, strong, liberty-loving American. We are proud to back him as well. For other offices around the state, we have 4. These are hand-picked people we are directly involved in, or we are closely involved in, or we know very well that believe we should be in other positions across the state. So our last 4 endorsees are Satise Kelly, friend of the show, running for State Central Committee over in Clark, Clinton, and Greene counties, I believe. She's running over in that area. Shelby Hunt's running for State Central Committee as well, over in the Jake Warner seat, who is a friend of the show. Brendan Shea running for Madison County Commissioner. He is a great conservative fighter on the state school board. Look forward to seeing him on the county commission here in Madison. And then David Glass running for Ross County Commissioner, fighter on the State Board of on the State Central Committee. Another strong fighter. Looking forward to see him here in Ross County for the county commission. So those are our endorsees. We look forward to having hopefully some of those members of the list on the program here soon to talk about it, talk about their endorsements, talk about what they're going to do to win. But we are proud to be the youngest ran organization. I'm 17, the youngest chairman in the state for any sort of organization like this. The largest for first-time voters, not young Republicans are 18 to 40. We are 12 to 20. So we have a smaller base. We are the largest group of young Republicans and young conservatives in the state. We look forward to seeing those people win their primaries and win big, hopefully. In an ideal world, they'll win by 100 points. But Kim Georgeton, Reggie Stolfus, Jared Majewski, Kevin Coughlin, Brian Stewart, Jennifer Gross, Anthony Savage, Beth Lear, Daniel Kalmbach, Ron Ferguson, Satisse Kelly, Shelby Hunt, Brendan Shea, and David Glass are our endorsed candidates by the Teenage Republicans of Ohio. We don't do private vetting, by the way. We do completely what you're saying in public, and if what you're saying is public is true, you're going to be backing Gen Z. We're not going to endorse people based on private meetings or private phone calls or connections. We're going to endorse them by what they're saying, and that's really what's important. Not going to have time to talk about ODOT in this program. Incredibly unfortunate, but we are going to return to that. Maybe not. But until then, my friends, we'll be back with you on Monday with another huge edition of the program. Until then, my friends, stay safe, stay healthy, have a great weekend, and most importantly, my friends, stay tuned. GOPJosh.com. We'll see y'all on Monday.
You're listening to the Conservative Crusader.